What a wild session today. We come into the session looking at whether or not bears can continue to defend this 4420. Now, to reiterate, the significance of this 4420 is that it is the last point before this unfilled gap right through here. So we've got a big gap from 4420 up into 4445. This is a natural spot not only to be taking profit if you have longs down from 4,300, but also to potentially initiate some new shorts. So following Tuesday's rejection of that zone, remember this is one of the upside targets that we had in the weekly kickoff. So following the rejection of that zone on Tuesday, we come into Wednesday with what I call an inside day. That just means that all of the price action from Wednesday, if I zoom in here, is within the prior day session. So all of the price action all of the price action from Wednesday is within Tuesday's daily bar. Now, anytime you have an inside day, generally speaking, you want to be trading with the direction that the bar breaks. So in this case, if the bar broke up above 4420, we would be looking for longs. If it breaks below this 4377, 4380 area, we're looking for shorts. Now, off the open, you do have some initial weakness there following CPI. Not a lot of activity, not a lot of action throughout the morning, right? Look at this 15-minute chart. This is a lot of barcode. Barcode just means overlapping bars, not a lot of great action here. We prefer to see this kind of directional action like we had on Wednesday. See the difference there? Directional action versus this barcode. And so not a lot of activity within this for me personally. Where it starts to get interesting, we do have the 30-year auction news comes out midday, and that pretty much puts price into a sell-off, right? And so once that prior day low breaks, pretty much a short setup if you're not short from 4420. You get the short setup with the inside bar breakdown, and we go for the next level of interest, which we had at 4358. And the reason I had it there at 4358 is because that is last week's high, right? And if we remember about last week was a weekly hammer. And so it's in bulls' best interest, it's in buyers' best interest to defend the high of that weekly hammer. So buyers step in versus the 4358. That's kind of the first long in this entire sequence that you want to be attempting. Good consolidation there, and then it resolves higher. Now we're back up through prior day low. So pretty clean price action today, all things considered, with reference to the posted levels. What I'm going to be looking at tomorrow is 4380, depending on the overnight action. We do have banks reporting in the morning, so that may shake things up in ES, in SPY. I'm going to be looking at the 4380 as well as that 4358. Now, this is a pretty wide daily bar that we have here today. So we may want to be expecting another inside day, right? One of the points I was making in the chat today in the think tank was that it's important to kind of look at the big picture context to kind of frame what type of move has already been put in. And so when we look at this, we see that the ATR on a weekly candle is 120 points. When we actually go and look at the move from Monday into Tuesday, that's 104 points on its own. So you pretty much have a one ATR move already being done in 2 sessions. We have 2 massive sessions that pretty much takes the entire weekly ATR. So from a probability perspective, what is the likelihood that we see continuation higher? That's what I'm always thinking about. After a massive back-to-back, frankly, 3 consecutive trend days higher, what is the probability, what is the likelihood that we see a 4th, right? That we see a 5th. In my mind, that's pretty unlikely. Is it possible? Of course. Of course it's possible, but it's unlikely. I just want to align myself with what is probable. I want to come into this session making sure that my mindset is correct. I'm not overly bullish thinking that it's going to be another trend day higher after 3 consecutive trend days and after we put in a full weekly ATR move in 2 sessions. So there's a really important point, something that took me a long time to fully internalize about, getting your expectations in line and really understanding what is the most likely play of the day. And so not all that surprising to see the chop, yesterday, still some decent action in yesterday's session, but broadly speaking, this is just sideways, right? Trading in a near-term range. It breaks down today. Now we're retesting that near-term range breakdown point. If we start to reject this 43.80, right, we're looking at a retest of last week's high, today's low. So I'll be looking at 43.80 primarily tomorrow, again, depending on the overnight action. If buyers continue to step in, obviously we have 4,400. Obviously we have 4,420. The levels are pretty much going to be the same as what we had today. Just want to be respecting the structure. So if we're thinking about it, like this, here's your range sideways. Okay, it breaks down. Here's your retest. Well, sellers are going to try and push it. So we'll probably have a bit of a battle here. Depending on the overnight action, I'll be treating 43.80 as a pivot. So that's ES. Let's take a look at NQ. I've not been watching NQ as much lately. Let's take a look here there's the weekly. So weekly, you have the hammer as well. Kind of back to back. You have a bit of a doji, hammer, follow through. So NQ still looking pretty strong. Broke prior day low. Looks like it initially broke that prior day high actually. Yeah, so here's regular trading hours. So it did actually initially break that prior day high. Did not give much follow through there. Obviously, right? We can see price showing a lot of churn, a lot of barcode before that news hits and we resolve lower. So you do have that near-term volume point of control, looking like this may be potential accumulation. So you want to be keeping an eye on the 15,300 in NQ. This continues to be a key level of interest up into the 15,500. We'll see how that plays out tomorrow for NQ. The daily and the weekly definitely favor longs, but let's take a look at this. One thing you may want to be keeping an eye on. I'm not a big trend line guy, but this is pretty obvious right here, right? This is pretty obvious. So keep an eye on this. Obviously, if it breaks, we're going to be looking at a pretty sizable move, but I would absolutely be keeping an eye on this series of lower highs. If you're bullish, you need today's high to be breaking. All right. Let me grab a screenshot of this actually. There we go. For individual names, we're looking at Delta Airlines. I'll be looking at a second day play here. We were initially looking for the long and never triggered. So hopefully no one got hurt there. The long did not trigger. Now tomorrow we're looking for potential, just going with the trend. This was posted as a no bias trade today. So just going with the trend, we'll be looking for the daily breakdown of this near term range. And that aligns with the trend. So it will be a bear bias play. On Delta Airlines, we do have JD. Second day, this was not on watch today, but check out the volume. Huge volume. And so we're just looking for continued weakness in this one. Trading on almost 300% daily average volume today. So we like to see some continued weakness there potentially. PLTR, I noted some relative strength here. So just trading within kind of this near-term range. Right? On the index sell-off, this never even broke session lows. So that's a bit interesting to me. It tells me that if the market is strong, we could see a little breakout of this near-term range. So PLTR on the watch. Then you have Walgreens, WBA. This one is going to be a second day watch as well. Remember this morning, we weren't quite sure what to do with it. It was a little messy. Well, now it becomes more clear. Big accumulation here, right? Yesterday, that was definitely a sell bar. Check this out, though. I love this. So that first day, if we treat yesterday as a first day because it was on big volume, that prior session volume point of control at 22.6 holds as support today perfectly. That's why I like to keep an eye on that first day session profile, first day volume point of control. Anytime an individual name is trading on big volume, higher than average volume, always want to watch that. Also works nicely on the index. On that note, let's take a look. This morning, I was talking about or maybe it was in yesterday's end of day recap. Either way, recently on a live stream, I mentioned the 43.95. Look at all the volume from Tuesday's session, right? Get my levels off of there so we could see it more clearly. From Tuesday's session and then Wednesday's session. So the yellow line represents the price that the most volume was traded at. 43.95. You open up here, 44.12. Where do we bounce? Look at that 5 minute. Where do we bounce? So you have a great intraday reversal signal via 2 5-minute hammers right at the past 2 days volume point of control. So these are significant levels. Session profile, prior day volume point of control. I really like to use them. Simply because, there's a lot of involvement at these particular price levels. And so if it is accumulation, we're going to see a bounce versus that profile, right? From there, you have a series of higher lows up into the 44.20. Couldn't break the 44.20. We're at resistance directly. You always see this too. They'll put price into some big pivot level right before some data release. And whatever the initial direction is, you usually get some kind of big move. Very, very common. You'll see price trading at a key pivot ahead of some data, ahead of some news. That was CPI this morning too, trading right near 44.20, initially rejects, right? So that's pretty much it for the index, for individual names. Any questions, guys? Hope everyone had a good session. It was a little tricky for me personally. I tried a couple of early longs before 10 a.m. that were not the best. Thankfully, I did recover on the day. That's part of the game, though, right? That's all part of the game. Any questions? Yeah, very tricky action. Very tricky action. I mean, the main thing to understand, if we want to look at it really quick, is that, all right, well, let's talk about the 15-minute extended trading hours. We have CPI. And so here is your initial leg lower following CPI. Now, we never broke the high of the previous 15-minute bar, right? And then the plan, as we discussed this morning, was below 44.20. We go for 4400. And so I got a little cheeky and I was trying some longs at what was SPY prior day high. Tried a long there. Did not materialize. And so that's just part of the game. That is just part of the game. Some good, some bad. Yes, sir. Hopefully less bad than good. But all right. Good stuff, guys. Get that review done. Look at your mistakes, how you could have improved. And we bring those lessons into tomorrow. So See you guys in the morning. Have a good afternoon. Later.